The point of this video is to review and explain terms that are often used in Christian discussions. The goal is that once you understand these terms, you can interact at a deeper level and you can come to a fuller understanding of the faith. So the first word we're going to be talking about is essence. Essence is basically the whatness or the common thing. So if you say, okay, well, what's the whatness? What is it to be a common? Let's look at humanity. So let's take Paul and Peter, say they're walking down the street. You see Paul, you see Peter, they might be different heights, they might be different weights, different hair, different eye color, different skin color, but they're both still equally human. So I'm as human as you are. Paul is as human as Peter is. And so if we say, okay, well, what does it mean to be a human? This just means you're of the kind. So what you are is made of body and a rational soul. All humans in the Christian worldview have bodies and rational souls. So again, Paul is as human as Peter. I'm as human as you. This humanity is something that all of us humans share, something between all of us. All of us are as human as each other. So what we are is a human. So we call our essence the human essence. So now let's look at other examples of the essence to kind of drive this point home. So look at a rock. Okay, say I pick up a rock here, and then I go down the street and I pick up another rock. These are different rocks, but they're both still rocks, which means that they both partake in or of the rock essence. They both still have what the requirements are to be a rock. So they're like, maybe they're hard, they're just little inanimate things that just sit there, they don't think, they don't talk, they do nothing. They're just rocks. So every single rock in existence shares certain things that make it a rock. Same thing with dogs, cats, and horses. Each of them share things that make them of that kind. So dogs will have certain traits and they're of a certain kind that is different than that of cats. So even look at dogs. You're going to have things that are like super small like Chihuahuas or big like Dobermans, but they still share some base level thing that still makes them classified as a dog. So this means that they're of the dog essence. What they are is still a dog. A Chihuahua is still a dog. A Doberman is still a dog. And this is distinct from what it means to be a cat or a horse. They still have bare bones things of what it means to be a dog, cat, horse. Okay, so now that we've kind of described essence in a fuller sense, that's just kind of this whatness, this common thing, well, now we're going to look at how it's different between creation and divinity. So creation is the created world. This is the universe. This is everything that you see around you. Okay, the entire universe, all space, time, and matter is creation. Again, the entire universe. You are a created thing. Now, when we're speaking of divinity, we're speaking of God. So outside of creation, before creation, this is divinity, this is God. So I'm saying that the essence, so what, the whatness of the thing, the common thing, is different between creation and divinity. So how is it different? The created essences are basically like blueprints. So some justification would be that when God comes down and he makes man, he says, let us make man in our image. So this is before Adam exists, before Eve exists, the first two humans. God is saying, let us make man in our image. So before the humans exist, God already has an idea of what it is to be a man. So it's like there's a blueprint here, and now you're going to build the building based off the blueprint. And now you move over, you build another building, it's still off the same blueprint. That blueprint is dictating what you are. And so say I build 100 buildings off the same blueprint, they still have this blueprint in common. That's still the whatness of them. So I would still say all of those things are buildings because they share the same blueprint. Obviously, they're still going to be different buildings, but they share in the fact that they come from the same blueprint. So now, how is this different from divinity? Well, the divine essence already really exists. So it's not this floating, abstract essence blueprint thing like created essences, like my essence. It's already really existing. So it's not a blueprint waiting to come into existence. It already really exists. So, how do we know this? Well, an example would be in scripture when God comes to Moses in the burning bush and he says, I am who I am, or I am that I am. And then he says, tell them that I am has sent you. What he's saying is, I am what it means to exist. So he's saying, I am what? So this is pointing towards his essence. It means to exist. So he's saying, by essence, I am existence. I'm not this mere floating blueprint like your guys' essence. I am existence. I am what it means to exist. So we say that the divine essence already is this real existing thing. It's not just a blueprint waiting to be turned into a building. So now let's go to hypostasis. So this you're going to hear a lot, especially in conversations about the Trinity. So a hypostasis is who or the particular. So if you say, okay, well, what does this mean? Let's look at individual people again. So Paul and Peter, we already talked about how they have shared humanity between them. So they have this whatness that makes them human, but they're individuals. So we have Paul and we have Peter, both human, but now they have their individual thing going on. Paul can have different height, different weight, different hair color. This is because he's his own hypostasis. And Peter can have his own thing because he's his own hypostasis. So it's basically an individuation of the essence or the instance of the essence. This is saying the essence is the blueprint. The hypostasis is the building, the thing that's actually there, the specific thing. So like we said earlier, you can have the one blueprint, and then you can build a bunch of houses off this blueprint. Every single house is going to be a hypostasis, an instance. The blueprint is going to be the essence still. So you can have a human essence, but a bunch of different actual humans. Now let's look at a couple other examples again, and we'll come back to rock. So say I pick up this specific rock. This is a rock hypostasis. I go down the street, I pick up a second rock, I have a second rock hypostasis. So now when I'm holding two rocks in my hand, there's still this one whatness of what it means to be a rock. So there's still this essence there, this rock essence. But now I'm holding two rocks in my hands. These are two rock hypostases. And so now when I look at dogs, let's take my dog. That would be a dog hypostasis. It's an instance, it's a specific dog from the dog essence. So again, what it means to be a dog versus this dog. So now let's look at the difference between hypostasis in creation and hypostasis in divinity, because again, there is a difference. So creation, the hypostasis, as we've kind of said, is going from blueprint to real individual thing. So like I said earlier, say you take a blueprint of a house, but now you're building the individual house. Boom. Say you take the human essence, now you're getting individual body and soul coming together to form a man. Boom, now you have an individual. Okay, well, you have what it means to be a rock. Now you have a specific rock. You have what it means to be a dog, and now a specific dog. This is going from blueprint to the constructed thing, to the real thing. So now in divinity, though, we already said that the essence is real by nature of existing. It's already real. And so you don't need to gain realness by becoming a hypostasis, by becoming particularized, by becoming an instance, by becoming the individual. You don't gain existence this way because you already have it in your essence. Creation doesn't have it to a certain extent because it's just this blueprint. It needs to be built, needs to be individualized, needs to exist more. The divinity already does exist fully. So now when we speak of the hypostases, we're using this as an analogy. So the hypostases for divinity, these are going to be differentiated by manner of existing. So again, created essence, blueprint, divine essence, already really existing. So now in creation, the hypostasis is making it really existing more when it's individualized. The divine essence already does really exist. So now when it's individualized, it doesn't just exist more. It already exists perfectly. Okay, so now that we're going to get into a couple different terms, I need to explain what a contronym is. A contronym is a word that has two opposed meanings. So I say one word and it can symbolize a couple different things, and often they contradict with each other. So nature is an example of a contronym. Nature is used a lot in Christian discussions, and most commonly can refer to essence or hypostasis. So it can have conflicting definitions. Because as we've already said, the essence is the whatness, and the hypostasis is this thing or that thing, kind of the who, the particular. So if you just say nature, you could be referring to either of them. There's also some other definitions of nature, but most commonly it's going to be essence or hypostasis. So an example would be that I say I have human nature. Okay, so I'm pointing towards the human essence, saying, okay, we all share in the same human nature. But if I say my human nature, I'm speaking of my individual nature. So I can say my nature in two different senses, my hypostasis, and I can say my essence. So common nature, individual nature, essence, hypostasis, nature can mean either of these things. So now let's move to substance. Substance can refer to primary or secondary substance. It breaks down further. So if somebody just says the word substance, it's like saying the word nature, but it can refer to a couple different things. So let's break down what primary and secondary substance are. A primary substance is basically the equivalent to the hypostasis. So like I said, this rock, this dog, that dog. So when you say primary substance, this is basically what you're referring to. Now when I get to secondary substance, this is basically essence. So again, the whatness of the thing in creation is going to be kind of the blueprint. So when I say human essence, when I say horse essence, when I say dog essence, rock essence, this is basically the secondary substance. Okay, so now to summarize, we see that nature is basically meaning substance. And then another word that you can use for this is physis. You might hear this sometimes. Especially you'll hear, say, the Oriental Orthodox Church. They'll say they're Miaphysites. They believe in Miaphysitism. Mia is going to be one in some composite sense. And physis is pointing towards the nature. Then you have Diophysites, like the Eastern Orthodox Church or Roman Catholic Church. They're saying dio is in two and physis as in nature. So physis just means nature, and this basically just means substance. And now when we look at essence, we already explained that this is a secondary substance. And another term that you can use for this is ousia. And then for hypostasis, we already went over how this basically just means primary substance. So now let's look at consubstantial and homoousios. So let's kind of break these terms down a little bit. So consubstantial, we have con and substantial. So con is going to mean same. Substantial is pointing towards the substance. So we're saying same substance. Now homoousios, homo means same. Ousios is what we said earlier with ousia, which means essence. So we have same ousia and we have same substance. And if you remember earlier, ousia in substance and essence can mean the same thing. And so this is same essence. So alrighty, I'm going to wrap up the video here, and I hope this has been beneficial. I invite you to rewatch anything that you find confusing, and feel free to ask about any additional terms you'd like to see explained. You can either leave a comment with a confusing term, or you can join the Discord server below and shoot me a message asking about the term in question. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new. So you just find a random rock on the street, now you find another rock down the block. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you find a rock on the street. I'm cracking myself up. Oh my gosh. Okay. Lock in. Here comes the sun.